Do you think the strongest version of the dinosaur age was the Jurassic, when giant dinosaurs moved like living mountains? Wrong. The Jurassic only made dinosaurs larger, but the Cretaceous was the age that pushed the dinosaur dynasty to its final form. If the keyword of the Jurassic was giants, then the keyword of the Cretaceous was an evolutionary arms race. Dinosaurs were no longer competing only over who could become bigger. They began competing over who could become harder, faster, smarter, whose weapons could become more extreme, whose defenses could become more absurd. It was as if Earth had opened a new mode. Since dinosaurs had already ruled the land, Earth seemed to ask, how many different kinds of monsters can they still become? And then, the Cretaceous arrived. By this time, Earth was no longer like the Jurassic, with vast connected lands, dominated by giant beasts. The continents kept breaking apart, the oceans kept expanding, the climate became more complicated. Forests, plains, coastlines, and islands were all cut into different survival arenas. For life, this was no longer simply a world of getting bigger. It was more like an arena, split into countless separate levels. In different places, dinosaurs were forced to evolve in different directions. Some continued to grow larger, some became faster, some turned their heads into weapons, some turned their bodies into fortresses, and some upgraded their mouths into bone-crushing machines. If you were thrown into the Cretaceous, do not think you would be safe just by avoiding the largest dinosaurs, because in this age, danger did not only come from size. It might be a group of small predators watching you from behind the grass. It might be a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs moving across a distant plain. It might be an armored Ankylosaurus standing near the forest edge, dragging a tail that looked like a warhammer. Or maybe you walk toward a river, and under the surface, you see a massive shadow slowly sliding through the water. The Cretaceous was not just a dinosaur paradise, it was more like Earth's final exam for dinosaurs, and one of the most representative contestants was Triceratops. It was not an animal that survived through speed, it was not a predator that hunted others, but the moment you looked at it, you would know this thing was not easy to mess with. A massive frill, long, sharp horns, a low, heavy body, thick, powerful limbs. Standing there, it did not look like a gentle plant eater. It looked more like an ancient war machine with horns. If a predator wanted to attack it from the front, that would not be hunting. That would be like challenging a war that could fight back. This was the logic of the Cretaceous. Herbivores were no longer only running away. They began growing armor, growing horns, growing plates, growing tail clubs. They used their entire bodies to fight back against predators. And on the predator side, evolution did not stop either. They were also being pushed to upgrade by this age. In the late Cretaceous, Earth finally produced the ultimate version of land predators, Tyrannosaurus rex. Do not be fooled by how late it appeared. Once it arrived, it was as if Earth had compressed all the design experience from earlier predators into one body. A massive skull, terrifying bite force, powerful hind limbs, a highly developed sense of smell, and that overwhelming pressure of standing at the top of the food chain. It did not need to test constantly like Allosaurus. It was more like the final processor Earth inserted into the land ecosystem. Near the end of the Cretaceous, you could say it was not the earliest king, but it was certainly one of the most iconic nightmares from the final stage of the dinosaur dynasty. If you stood on a Cretaceous plain and behind the distant tree line, you saw a giant head slowly rise, you should not think about running, because before you even decided which direction to escape, it may have already smelled your existence. The horror of this age was not only that it was large, it was that it was outrageously large and still sensitive enough to find you. But the Cretaceous was not only the stage of Tyrannosaurus. In the sky, pterosaurs still spread their enormous wings, gliding from coastlines and cliffs. Some pterosaurs were so large that even standing on the ground, they looked like living aircraft. In the ocean, mosasaurs and other marine reptiles turned the water into another battlefield. On land, there was Tyrannosaurus. On the plains, there was Triceratops. In the forests, there was Ankylosaurus. In the sky, there were pterosaurs. In the sea, there were mosasaurs. At this point, Earth was no longer just in the age of dinosaurs. It was more like the Mesozoic life system, running its most complex, most extreme, and most spectacular version. But exactly at this moment, Earth began changing. In another important way, the plant world started to become different. Flowering plants began spreading rapidly. Forests changed. The insect world changed. Even the bottom layer of the food chain started to change. You may think this had nothing to do with dinosaurs, but on Earth, the fate of rulers is often not decided by the mouth at the top. It is decided by the leaf at the bottom. When plants change, insects change, plant eaters change, and predators change along with them. Cretaceous evolution was not about one species becoming stronger alone. The entire ecosystem was accelerating together. So in this age, life became more complicated. Dinosaurs became more diverse. Defenses became more exaggerated. Predation became more precise. Ecological relationships became tighter and more tense. It was like a game pulled into its final stage. Every player brought out its final equipment. Triceratops brought horns and a massive frill. Ankylosaurus brought armor and a tail club. Tyrannosaurus brought a giant mouth. and crushing bite force, Pterosaurs continued to occupy the sky. Mosasaurs turned the ocean into a hunting ground, and those small, unremarkable mammals were still hiding in the corners, like backup players who had not yet been called onto the stage. They were tiny, weak, they could not be too bold. During the day, only at night did they dare to move around. At the brightest moment of the dinosaur dynasty, they did not look at all like the future main characters. They looked more like small creatures in the cracks of the age, waiting for the lights to go out. That is the greatest irony of the Cretaceous. Dinosaurs seemed to have filled Earth. The land belonged to them. Their shadows crossed the sky. The coastlines and shallow seas were controlled by Mesozoic giants. They had grown horns, armor, giant jaws, and every kind of final form suited to their age, but they did not know that the most dangerous moment for a dynasty is often not when it is weak, it is when it believes it has reached the top. The dinosaurs of the Cretaceous really did reach the top, but the top has never been a safe zone. The top is only the place closest to the sky, and sometimes the sky does not give you an answer, it only gives you a rock. In the final days of the Cretaceous, dinosaurs did not know that an object from space was moving toward Earth. It did not belong to any ecological niche. It did not participate in any evolutionary competition. It did not care about the bite force of Tyrannosaurus. It did not care about the horns of Triceratops. It did not care about the armor of Ankylosaurus. And it did not care how long dinosaurs had ruled the planet, because it was not a stronger animal. It was a reset button from the universe. So the true terror of the Cretaceous was not how powerful dinosaurs became. It was that Earth allowed them to become powerful to the extreme and then placed them in the most fragile position. It was as if Earth was telling every form of life, you can evolve to the peak, you can fill the land, you can control the food chain, you can turn an entire age into your dynasty, but if the rules come from beyond the sky, all your weapons can fail in an instant. The Cretaceous was not an ordinary chapter in the dinosaur story. It was the final crown of the dinosaur dynasty. It was also the brightest and most dangerous light before Earth turned the next page, because on this planet, the closer a life form gets to the peak, the easier it is to forget one thing: Earth will never stop turning the page. Just because you are powerful